Okay, so I will show you how to make an animated clay texture like this with fingerprints in the normals and a bumpy outline to sort of displace it and give it more of that handmade texture. So what I'm going to do is get rid of all of this that I've done already. And just start from scratch. Okay, so this is my model. It's a very silly bird model. And so what I'm going to do is just quickly add a subdivision surface modifier. I'm going to take it up to about 2. I might increase that in a minute. And then I'm just going to add a deform modifier. At the moment, it just makes it look a bit silly like this. I think we want a strength of about 0.3. And we're just going to create a new texture and go into the settings. And what we're going to do is create a clouds texture. So you see it bounces it around and moves the mesh a bit, just creating texture to the outline of the model. So what we can do is we'll just adjust this till it looks about right. I think, yeah, somewhere around 1.8 looks good for me. Keep the depth at 2 and then upload 0.3. And it just, if you compare it before and after, it just bounces around a bit and makes it look a bit more handmade. And then we've added this subdivision surface because at base this model doesn't have much shape to it. So there's not many vertices that it can bounce around. So we're just adding a few more so we can get more interesting shape on it. So now we're going to move into the shader tab and just to make it look a bit more clay, I'm just going to give it a bit of a brownish texture. Somewhere around that looks nice. I'm going to take the roughness all the way up. We got a nice brown here. And what we're going to do is grab a fingerprint texture. So you can see here, all I've done for this is just gone into Substance Painter and just placed a load of fingerprints around and put them on. I think this is 3 different layers with different amounts of transparency, just to give some variation in the texture. So we've added the texture. If at any point you get lost and want to know what hotkeys I'm clicking, it's just here. So I'm going to go in here. We're going to quickly change this to Smart Box Project, and we're going to bring the blend up a bit. It doesn't really matter what it is, and we'll duplicate it. I have the Node Wrangler add-on. If you don't, you go up here into Preferences, Add-ons, and just search for Node Wrangler. And there it is. So I'm just going to hit Control-T on here, and it'll give us a texture coordinate and a mapping node. What we'll do is we'll just duplicate this mapping node, plug it into the second version of our texture here, and instead of mapping it out on the UV, because what this will do is just place the textures along the UV as we've unwrapped it, but that gives us these awkward lines which we don't want. So instead, we're just going to go generated, and it'll just project it over the whole mesh. doesn't matter where the seams are. So you can see here, it's nice and evenly distributed. So we're going to plug this into both of the mapping nodes here. So what we want to do next, so we'll just grab a mix color node, and we'll plug this into the top, this into the bottom. On the second one where it says color, this tells us what we're taking as inputs and outputs, and this is what we're doing with the operation. So just put that on and do a mix factor of 5. So what we're going to do from here, at the moment, we've got, this just looks the same because both of these mapping nodes do the exact same thing. And what these do is tell us how to place the texture around. So what we're going to do is just grab a value, just an input, and we're going to plug this into both of the scales, just so we have one thing that we can control that controls how big the scale is. So I think somewhere around, it will go about 1.9. I think that looks quite nice. There we go. So you've got fingerprints all dotted around. And then what we're going to do is we'll just duplicate this with Shift D. And we'll get an add node. So we just want math. It doesn't matter what this is right now. So we've just got an add. We'll plug this in and we'll just add a random number. I'll go 201. And then we'll get a combine XYZ, and we'll just plug this into the Z. And we'll duplicate this again. This time we'll plug it straight into the Z. And we'll just slap one of these into the rotation on each. So what this is doing, maybe one a bit bigger of a number, we'll go 2.9, that'd be nice. 2.9. So what this has done is it's given us random rotation on one of the textures, just to give it a little more visual interest. But what we want to do for this is we want it to animate per frame. So I'm going to put hashtag frame, and then every frame it'll animate, it'll increment this, which will change around the rotation, which will make it look like we're using a different thing each frame. I would advise either going into your render properties, changing this down to 8 FPS, mine's already here, or if you don't want to do that and you still want to animate it 24 frames per second, you can put here frame divided by 4, or if you want it to change more often, you can do divided by 3 or divided by 5 if you want it to change less often. And that's just a matter of taste. Now we've got our fingerprint textures randomly bouncing around a bit, which looks quite nice and makes it feel more stop motion-y. So we've got all that, but at the moment this is just the base color, but we don't want it really to control the base color. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add in a bump node. What this will do, if we plug it into the normal, is it'll allow us to use this here as displacement instead of or visual displacement instead of just the texture. So if we plug it in, we don't really see very much. So maybe we'll bring the distance up a bit. So I think if you hold shift, you can get it a little bit tighter. So I think that looks nice, about 2.1. Probably want a bit less, but that doesn't matter right now, because what we also want to do is add a bit more of a bounce to the outside. So I'm just going to unplug this quickly. And what we're going to do is just add a Voronoi texture. So we're going to be playing around with the distance on this. So if I put it on the base color, you can see that's what it looks like. This isn't particularly the effect we want. So we're going to change this to smooth F1, which gives us, as it says, more of a smooth thingy. We're going to do 4D, so this gives us a time dimension as well as the X, Y, and Z. Bring the scale down a bit. Should say 3.5. Bring the roughness up a bit. And we'll hit Control T again with the Node Wrangler add-on, and just to map it. And this time I think we want object. So there you go, you can see we've got some little spots on. But what happens when we plug this into the height is it looks a lot more bumpy. So I think we'll get another value. You don't have to do this, you can change it straight in here. But I like them all to be the same. So just plugging a value straight into there. Let's keep it all consistent and nice and tidy. So let's say 4, 4. That's nice and subtle. And then I'll take down the randomness a bit. Let's say about here. Smoothness, line equity. So I think this is all quite nice. But I think we want it a bit higher, and we'll just add a ramp. This is going to allow us to bring up the blacks a bit, to bring things in, and so this controls where the maximum white and maximum black is. Black is where it's pushed in the most, and white is where it's pushed in the least, or not all. You can see here, if I pull the black up, it goes in more. And if I pull the white down, it tightens it up. So I'm just going to change this to B-spline. We have a bit more of a tail on it. Let's see, bring the distance up a bit. Try. That's about right. That's maybe a bit. We don't quite want it. I think somewhere around there looks quite nice, but obviously these are going to be different because we're going to have to combine these, because we don't just want one, we want them both together, but that's a lot for the fingerprints. So we're just going to get, we're going to grab another color ramp. So Shift D here, plug this into here, and we'll get an add node. So grab the math node, plug this into height, and we'll plug both of these into here. So I think on this one, we probably want Probably just want it linear. And we'll say between black, we want this to be a lot less aggressive. So if we bring this down, here we go 0.006. Does that look alright? I think that's 0.006. Maybe that's a bit better. Yeah, gives us quite subtle fingerprints, but I think that's quite nice. Oh, and what I want to do is just do hashtag frame into here, and then that will animate the Voronoi texture again. So maybe we can bring this up a bit. If we go 1.8, maybe we'll play around with these a bit. Bring this a little more grey. I think that looks quite nice. So there you go. Now you've got, or you might want to invert these fingerprints actually, because at the moment it looks like it's on top. So we'll just swap the black and the grey, and now it should look like it's going inwards. And you've got a nice looking animated texture. And it looks quite nice, quite like proper clay. The other thing that we can do here is, rather than using this displacement on the modifiers, if we turn this off, there's another way that we can do displacement on here. So for now, I'm just going to copy this, and we'll add a displacement map, or vector displacement, sorry. So just add this in here, and we'll plug it into this displacement. So what this will do is allow us to control the displacement using a shader. So if we want to plug this into the scale, I think, for the time being, I'll just unplug the normal. It doesn't really look like it's doing anything besides the normals. So what we want to do is go into the Material tab, and under Settings here, there's a displacement setting. So I'm just going to go into that. At the moment it's set to bump only, so it'll only change the visual displacement. And we want to change it to displacement and bump. And now it's changing the actual mesh like we want. Bring the mid-level down a little bit. Maybe something like that, 0.13. Bring the height up, because rather than going inwards, we want it to go outwards a little bit. And then you can just play around with this until you get something you like. We've changed the scale a bit. But this will be a lot more intensive on your computer than the other version. So we got a little bit of a wobble on it. And we can plug in the normal map, and then it all animates. Or, sorry, I've not. Frame. So now it all animates, but obviously this is optional. It's a lot more intensive on the computer. And there you go. So that's how you can make an animated clay texture in Blender. This should work in both Eevee and Cycles, and naturally looks a bit nicer in Cycles. But yeah, there you go. I hope you enjoy.